Hi everyone! Welcome to my free webinar, How to Land Your Dream Job in 2021. I have lots of good news stories that I'll share with you today, and people are getting jobs even despite COVID. So I want to share some of these best practices with you. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to put them up in the chat box. If I don't get to you right away, I'll definitely get to you in the Q&A section that I host at the end. The session should be less than an hour. My goal is I know how busy you are, and hopefully I can keep the content to about 40 minutes, and then we'll leave time at the end to answer all your questions. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to talk about resumes, interview skills, being clear when you're asked, what are you looking for? I'm going to talk about the Gallup Strengths, which is a tool, an online, it's pretty affordable as well, online profiling tool that you can use that helps you present your brand, where to find the jobs, and then, like I said, we'll do a Q&A at the end. Okay. So, one of the things that I work with a lot of my clients is creating a human-voiced resume. So in the old days, resumes were filled with business jargon, and now we want to put more of your personality into it. So what I mean by that is at the top of the resume, a professional profile or objective statement. It should tell about what you're passionate about. What are your strongest talents? When do you come alive? So any of those statements that give them just a bit more feel for what your personality is and what types of activities you excel at. So that's what I call a human voice resume. The other parts of the resume that we weave in is, rather than waste time describing responsibilities, we actually spend a lot more time describing achievements. Things that you proactively did on the job. You left the place better than you found it. And so that's really important nowadays in resumes. And just to differentiate a bit, resume writing to capture attention, the zombie speak is the old days business jargon, and the human voice is what we want today. And particularly in the cover letters, we want that human voice to come out. If you just moved to a new country, if you're changing careers, you can put, why you love this company. You can, just use that bit of space to describe yourself. So now I'm going to show you an example of a bad resume. Now this is one of my actual clients, but I've changed the name. So she came to me as an IT professional, and this is what her resume looked like. She wasn't getting callback. She was pretty unhappy in her current employer. She happened to work for a healthcare provider in the IT team, and she had all the right ingredients on the resume, but probably just not presenting it the right way. So nowadays, I recommend everyone take off your home address, because it just doesn't matter, particularly during COVID where you live. You should have your email, but you should also have your LinkedIn URL, so it's missing that. And then instead of giving overview, I would write that human voice paragraph and not repeat some of those same capabilities down here. So we can even separate for her the technical skills that she has and all the technical softwares that she's familiar with. But we want to describe her capabilities. So have like 5 or 6 bullet points, and I'll show you the good version in a minute. But 5 or 6 bullet points of, here are the key skills that I bring, and then proof. After those headings, those bolded headings, what are some examples of her demonstrating those capabilities? Then I would start the work experience on the second page. So I would use that first page to make a great impression. You only have 6 seconds, so you've got to be quick. And the way you present that information is so important when someone is looking at 200 resumes a day. Now, going into her second page, she did do the right thing in putting achievements here instead of a lot of detail around the responsibilities, because most people know what the job titles do, so you don't need to spend a lot of effort doing the responsibilities as much as you do with the achievements. And even better if you can put some metrics into the achievements, which I don't see here, but it will be in the new version. And then her education down here, and making sure that you list the years that you completed these courses, especially if they're relevant for the job. That's very helpful. Some people just list all the courses, but they don't say if they were 10 years ago or 1 year ago. So I think it is helpful to list those time frames. She's also listed the month and year that she started and stopped jobs. If you leave that information out, your resume will be thrown out. And if you don't list career gaps, if you don't address the career gaps, your resume will be thrown out as well. And then these are her extra volunteer activities, which I do love seeing. I think it tells the employer that you are a bit unselfish in giving your time to other organizations. And then she's got even more technical information at the end. And by the way, you don't need to put references available on requests. It just doesn't need to be on our resumes anymore. Most companies don't verify references until you've had a good interview, so you can hold that information back. Okay, so now this new resume version actually got her a couple of job interviews and a couple of job offers. So she's got kind of that human voice paragraph. She says, I thrive in the fast-paced organization where I can juggle multiple projects. She says, I'm always seeking new ideas to come up with smarter solutions. And we did her strengths profile. So we've weaved some of that language into her personal profile. And then, like I said, we have the headings for her, the proof in the pudding, I would say, to show that she does have this experience. And then we've listed her technical systems that she's worked on. Also, this is great for people that have had a career for more than 10 years, that you can just list a summary of the different jobs. That HR people that are screening resumes, they like to see that you've moved up within a company or you've done a few different roles. So that's really good, as long as you can fit it all on that first page. And then going into her work history, we've put a bit more content into some of the projects that she led, but then also the achievements. So we've split it out. She had it mixed in together before. And then we have, sometimes if you only have a job for a couple months, it's okay just to have a couple of achievements, especially if you were a new or an entry-level role. But if you've had a job for 5 years or you've had a leadership role, you definitely need to have some significant achievements, or they might think that you haven't done enough while you're in that role. And then, yeah, I guess this, if you notice, the employers are all in that blue font. The job titles are all in a different bold black font, and the dates are right next to the job title. It's really important. I know it's very pedantic. And then the location is in italics, so that someone that looks at lots of resumes can scan if they're interested in the job titles. They can scan if they are interested in the location or the employers. So it's all in that consistent font, and that's really helpful. This template is getting people noticed. And then this is a great example of a cover letter. It should be short and sweet. You should have kind of a general introduction paragraph, and you can put a bit of that human voice in there. But you need to paste the actual headings from the job advertisement. So if they say that they want someone that has workplace management services delivery, list that bullet point and then list the proof that you've had it. So rule of thumb is to use 3 to 5 bullet points, as long as you can keep it to 1 page, and as long as you are meeting that criteria by ability to give evidence. Then a very short closing paragraph. You can even quote something from their ad about the culture, and that aligns with your values and strengths. And then that's it. Your name, mobile number. And the rule of thumb is that cover letters get written, they get read 50% of the time. So because you don't know who likes to read them and who doesn't, I would comply and I would still write out that cover letter, but keep it very simple to that formula. And I've got a lot of good examples of resumes and cover letters on my website on the online career advice page if you do want more information. And just to wrap up on the resume do's and don'ts, no more than 4 pages. You don't have to go back further than 15 years of job history. If you do, put it in that career summary table, but don't go into the details in the work history pages because you need that space for more current, recent jobs. You do have to explain job gaps, at least if you were unemployed. Let's see, it depends on the role in the industry, but if you're unemployed for 3 to 6 months, you should explain it. You can say you're traveling, you can say you had a baby, you can say you were caring for a family member. You could even say COVID. That's quite acceptable. And then 11-point font size, please use Calibri or Verdana. Those are the 2 fonts that I think look the best and they're easy to scan. If you are changing job families, then use that whole first page as a summary of you and your transferable skills. That way they're not distracted by you worked in a different industry starting on the second page. Definitely achievements. I cannot stress that enough. All the employers in the last few years are looking much more heavily at achievements than just your skills. They want to know how much of a self-starter you are. And then save a master version of your resume. So if you do need to change it a bit, I don't recommend customizing your resume, but do save a master so that you can keep adding keywords in it. And if you maybe take out some jobs that don't relate to, in the old history, that don't relate to the new job that you're applying for, or take out some of the bullet points because it's not as important, that's okay. And then don't show your home address, don't attach a photo. Only exception to that is if you're going into public relations. Don't include your date of birth, don't include high school unless you are a high school student looking for a job. PhDs don't always impress people because they think that your pay expectations are higher and that you might demand more quicker advancement in the role. So you can put it in your education, but don't expect that it'll get you more noticed from your competitors. Salary info, that's after the first interview. I've got benchmarking salary data on my website as well if you want to see what all the job pay scales are in Australia. Religion, don't need to put, and then don't use a font that's hard to read. Times New Roman is horrible to read. All right, so now let's move to interview skills. So interviews are tough because some people have been at the same company for, let's say, 15 years, and things have changed in the way that we do interviews, and it's a bit intimidating. So I have an interview guide on my website. It's about 9 pages, but it has lots of questions that you can prepare for and tips. You could also do a practice interview. I do a lot of those. I've done 3 in the last 2 weeks, and all 3 of them called me and said they did really well. The third one didn't think she did well, but she did get the job offer. One is still outstanding, but she did well. She was really happy she did the rehearsal because they asked her some curly questions that she wouldn't have expected had she not done a dry run. But you've got to come across knowing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And let me just share with you a bit about some of those tips. So inevitably, most interviews, they will ask you to tell me about yourself. This is not a chance for you to recite your resume and your work history. It's really to tell them you have 3 beautiful children, that you're a mad NASCAR racing fan, you love soccer. Like, tell them a bit about your human side. Be vulnerable. And they enjoy that because they really do lots of interviews. And the more that you can stand out and be confident in who you are, the better an impression you'll make. So you can weave some of your business dealings, like I started my career in Singapore, but then that led me to try out a different role, which is now my partner I married is Australian, so I've come to Australia. So you can talk about your roots and a little bit about your history. It just doesn't have to be all about work. And then your strengths. I really encourage all of my clients to go online and take the top 5 strength survey. It's 33 Aussie dollars. And that way it gives you a customized report and it gives you a language to kind of name and claim your strengths. And then you can use them in your interviews, in your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, and you can talk about each of those strengths. So a lady had an interview the other day. They asked her, what are her 3 strengths? Really quickly, she said, I'm organized. I arrange family gatherings. I love doing project plans. She said, I'm detail oriented. I love spreadsheets. So just a naming it and then just a real quick example of it, that shows that you are going to perform better in your interview. And then prepare your STAR stories. So STAR is a framework of how you answer a behavioral question. And it actually doesn't sound like a question when the employer or HR person asks you, but they'll say, describe a time you dealt with a difficult person. And I was just doing a practice interview with a lady from Japan the other day, and she struggled to tell me why the customer was difficult. But when I probed her, she said that the person was so angry about their mobile phone breaking down, and she was like a IT concierge. They threw the cables at her. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty angry. So we worked out that STAR framework to be able to tell the story. What was the situation? She was a senior support desk for the IT concierge. What was the task? Well, she generally didn't have to deal with the customers face to face, but this particular customer was so irate, it got escalated to her from the first level agents. What was the action she took? She sat down, let the person rant, gave her a workaround. Here's a substitute mobile phone that you can use with the customer meeting you have in an hour, and we'll get you the original one back within 3 days. And the result was that she got her phone replaced, and the lady was actually much nicer to her going forward at work. So don't forget to tell the result. Lots of people do that. But have your STAR framework stories written out with your notes of your high bullet points, because they shouldn't be more than 2 minutes of response when you get asked one of these questions. And then have an example of a STAR story that relates to teamwork, communication, technical, if you're in, specific engineering or IT industry, a problem solving story. Everybody should have a problem solving story. Everybody should have a leadership story. And leadership doesn't mean you're leading people. It means that you saw a problem and you proactively got others involved to help solve it, or you took action. So learn about that STAR framework. I highly recommend it. It helps you stay structured, and when you get nervous, you don't forget to tell parts of the story. And then the other way to stand out in interviews is to really have prepared. Don't waste your questions to ask them on what are the next steps? When will I hear from you? How many people are interviewing? Don't use this last opportunity to make a wonderful impression, like, can you tell me the top 3 challenges of this role if I'm successful? You can ask them if you're really courageous. I love this when my clients do it, and it impresses the employers. Do you have any reservations about me fulfilling the role? And this lady asked the other day, and they said no, which was great. They gave her great feedback that she advanced to the next interview. She's got a 4th interview in the next 2 weeks. So ask really good questions. Again, in my interview guide, I have more good questions. What's the training that's provided? What do you think of the culture at the company? How do you like working here? So all of those questions are less about me and more about you and the business, and that is making a great impression. Okay, and then let's move on to Aussie culture. Unfortunately, I do see this. I've experienced it myself in living here. I've been here for 12 years. You are your last job, so you've got to work a bit harder if you're trying to move away from that last job. So for example, I was an HR director in my last corporate role, and I really wanted to go back to coaching and doing outplacement coaching, which is when people are laid off, they go to a service. So I had to work harder in networking to find opportunities and to also make that first page summary all about my transferable skills and then my work history. And my work history, achievements and responsibilities related more to that new job. I kind of tried to make it more relevant to the new industry that I'm going for. So that's what I mean when I say credibility and proof. So putting examples that show that you have, it's not good enough anymore to say I'm a team player or I'm a problem solver. You have to give stories, short, very succinct stories to describe that. Same with achievements. Some people have such a great list of achievements, they put them right on the first page of key achievements. I won Salesman of the Year for the last 3 years. I got to got chosen to go to Fiji for a national conference of high performers. I was able to turn around a struggling product to then become profitable within 18 months. Like, those are great achievements. So don't be afraid to put those on the front page, because that gets attention. And then asking good questions is okay. They would rather you ask questions than kind of sit back and be silent in the interactions that you have with them. And persistence. So I had a man who was looking for a job for 18 months. And someone introduced him to a new recruiter, and he said, if you use this recruiter, you have to call him every day. And he did. On the third day, the recruiter said, all right, come in and I'll interview you. And a week later, he was interviewing for a new job, which he's now got. So persistence, even though you feel like you're bothering someone, keep calling them. Always be super polite. Never ask them to call you back. But by calling them and saying, I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll come back to you next week, anything like that, it says, I'm not giving up. And I don't want to intrude on you, but I really, really want your time to see if there's any opportunities in the future. So let me go to the next topic. So the do's and don'ts for interviews are definitely dress up. I had a man that did a webcam interview, and the employer and the other manager that interviewed him said, we are so thankful that you dressed up. Thank you so much for making the effort. Prepare your star stories. Do research the company. In my days as an HR director, we would ask the new candidates, what do you think of the website? You could tell immediately if they did any research at looking at the company's website. Show your self-awareness. So we're not perfect and good at all things. So it's okay to say, I'm super detailed. Sometimes I've got to be able to extract myself to look at the bigger picture. I now remind myself of that. So show how you're correcting it. Be yourself, and always send a thank you note. If you have the contact details, you can do it on LinkedIn, you can do it on email, you can call and leave a message, whatever way. The thank you notes are a rarity nowadays. So if you can go that extra mile, that sets you apart from your competition. Don't lie about your history. Don't diminish the value. So I've seen some cover letters that say, I know I'm not experienced in this industry. Don't even mention it. You got this. You know you can do it. So let's not bring their attention to it. And then this is different. Forget that you do the star pose to combat nervousness. There's a TED Talk that talks about Amy Cuddy, a psychologist. When you cross the finish line in the Olympics, what do the runners do? They lift their arms up in that Y. And so there's studies that show proof that this helps you calm you down. It helps your brain chemistry. So don't forget to do that pose. If you need to go check in at the lobby, go excuse yourself in the restroom, by all means do it, because it helps calm you and it helps your brain function better when you're asked interview questions. And remember, you don't want to give any interview response that's more than 2 minutes. You need to watch their body language. Are their eyes darting around? Are they looking at their papers, their watch? You know you need to wrap it up. And if you think you're not hitting the mark, stop yourself and say, hey, am I answering your question? They will clarify, and they will appreciate that you took the opportunity to ask that. And then don't be afraid to say only once, I'm really sorry, I'm nervous, can I start over? Or, my thoughts are a bit jumbled. People understand, majority of humans do not enjoy interviews, so don't worry. And if I told you I was nervous today, you all would go, okay, well, we understand. Public presenting isn't always fun. Okay, so that's the wrap up of interviews. Now, there's a bit about networking that I will talk about in a minute, but talking about what you want. So when particularly when you're younger, the younger ones don't really know what type of job they want. So, and that's okay, but they should know that, well, I want to do something outside, and I want to do something that is around people, or I want to do something that's working with my hands, or I want to, so just to have those talking points ready about what you're looking for. I want to work for a company that excites me, that has ethical values, that can use my engineering skills or my design skills. So have that kind of response ready for when you meet people at a barbecue, on the bus, at a restaurant, because these things are really helpful for your networking. And if you can articulate what you're looking for, people now kind of search their own brain to go, okay, who do I know that could help them? And that has definitely been a successful process that has worked for a lot of my clients. Also, be conscious of your body language, your eye contact, your smile, your posture. Some people get nervous, they forget to smile, but you do. You look more approachable if you can smile. And posture, meaning you look more confident, put your hands behind your back, and that kind of puts your shoulders back. And no waffling. So know what you want, and know what you can even name my strengths. I'm really great with people. I love solving problems. I kind of like working from home. So I wouldn't mind a remote role. Any of those things can describe, but the more specific you can be on what types of jobs you're looking at, the more someone on the other end might be willing to help you and introduce you to someone. And then how to convey passion is all about knowing your strengths. So my top 5 strengths are relator, positivity, arranger, responsibility, and woo. Now there are 34 strengths in this profiling tool. Not all of them are intuitive. So like woo, people wouldn't know what that is. But if you can name that strength, you can put your own words to it. So relator is a common strength a lot of people have. They like working with a team. They have friends that they grew up with. They like having close friends in their life. Positivity, that's self-explanatory. I'm always smiling. I'm always checking in with people. Arranger, I organize my wardrobe from lights to darks, and then one side is all casual clothing, one side's professional clothing. So there's this organizational tendency within Arranger. And responsibility is great work ethic, which I got handed down from my mom and my dad. They both have done the strength survey, and they have responsibility as well. And then woo. I love meeting new people. I will talk to the Kohl's cashier. I'll talk to the bus driver. I just am easy at having casual conversation. I never run out of things to talk about. So I really encourage you, particularly if your strengths are assets for the new job you're going for, to share those strengths, because they'll ask you, why do you want to work for us? Well, one of my strengths is arranger. So I love project management because that's what I do in my personal life, and that's what I love doing in my professional life as well. So that's a much more compelling response than to say, well, I've had 10 years of project management experience. Not good enough anymore. So if you can convey your passion through using your strengths, you will be ahead of the pack. And then let me just show you all of the 34 strengths. So there are 4 families of strengths. So there's the doers, there's the influencers, people that take charge, speak up, make sure the team is heard. There's the relators, the relationship building. They make the team greater than the sum of its parts. And there's the strategic thinkers. Now, there's no one good formula. My strengths all fall within these 3 columns. And then I surround myself with strategic thinkers because those are not my natural tendencies. And saying that, I've rolled out strategies to companies that were massive and had massive implications. But I also did that by pulling in strategic thinkers to help me map out what the best way of going about that would be. So if you are curious, you can go on my website to find out how to take the strength survey. You can also unlock your full 34 strengths ranking from number 1 to 34. Cost about $80. The learners, I find that people that have learner, they want to know all of their 34 strengths. But up to you. I think the top 5, if you kind of know what you're going for and it's not a massive change from what you're doing now, the top 5 is really helpful for confidence, for you to have a language to talk about yourself. And by the way, these strengths can become your weakness. So activator, they're very decisive. They love initiating stuff. But the weakness for that strength can be that they jump too quickly. Or communication, they're really good with their words, But the weakness for that may be they dominate the conversation or they're too chatty. So all of these strengths are a window to what your weaknesses are. And if you get asked that question, you also sound authentic. And then the iceberg analogy. So this has become more and more true in the last 5-10 years, that the jobs you see advertised in LinkedIn or Seek or Indeed or even on the company websites, it's a very small percentage of the open roles that are available. So it's less than 30% now. It's closer to 20%, and that includes headhunters. However, if you look at all the jobs that are available, people would rather hire someone that they know or that someone is endorsed. And so when you're job searching, you cannot put all your eggs in one basket and only look at the online jobs. You have to start talking to people, and it can be people you know. It can be people you go to the gym with, your other parents from the kids' school. It can be someone you meet at a barbecue. That networking is so important, and that leads to jobs. So I counted up the last 13 jobs I've had in my whole life. 11 of them were through networking. Only 2 of them did I apply for an advertisement online. So that shows you it's true. So so definitely try to network. You don't have to know your whole elevator pitch. You don't have to have the solution, but it's just saying, hey, I'm looking, I'm hoping to find a role that helps me build these skills or leverage these skills. If you know anyone that might lead to an opportunity, please let me know. Okay. And the changing face of employment. Okay, so you should know that for all channels of social media, if a recruiter gets a resume, they are looking you up on LinkedIn. You may never know. They don't necessarily show that they viewed your profile. They are looking you up on Facebook to see if you have anything controversial on your Facebook account. So be aware of that and make sure that you don't have anything that's maybe too political or too confrontational or even partying images. So make sure that your presence online is kind of a consistent brand, that it's consistent with your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook page, and that there are positive images of you. And you should use LinkedIn. You should use it to get noticed, to like companies that you might be interested in working for. I would be sending LinkedIn invites to people that you admire. I would be asking them for advice. I just did this with the client a few weeks ago. Now this person that we reached out to, and I helped him do that, this person is helping him find work experience in a completely different industry that he hasn't worked in before. So it's wonderful if you can use LinkedIn to find people that you can learn from and admire, and they will be willing to help you. Seek and Indeed are really great for government jobs, for tradie jobs. So don't hesitate to use those sites. And then Instagram, I see a lot more job advertisements towards the younger generation on Instagram and even Facebook. So if you can join, like for me, I'm a member of a few moms groups, and I see job ads and the like that I can refer people to. So don't be shy about joining some different support groups. There's even like massive job seeker groups as well. And I think if I were to choose one recruitment platform, if you're looking for any professional job, LinkedIn would be my preference, because I feel like it gives you a bit more information about how many have applied. You can be very quick in setting up those daily or weekly alerts, so you can be very quick in applying for those roles. You can also instantly show them your profile. So there's a lot of positives if you are able to use LinkedIn. Seek, I do like, and they've upped their game as well recently, where they put much more information in the salary range, and so I think they are competing with LinkedIn. But yeah, Seek would be my number 2. And then just staying aware on the other channels, I think will help your cause as well. So it's kind of like diversifying your job search strategy will help you 100%. And these are some websites that I get alerts weekly or daily from. Flex Careers I like for moms and for people that want to work remotely. Like I see employers like Deloitte posting jobs or KPMG. So don't be afraid to subscribe to this website. Indeed, Tradies, Hospitality, Seek. There's one called Work 180, which is all about equity and diversity in the workplace, which I really like this one. So it's got great companies that want to advertise with them. Beam is another one that's for working moms. They don't just place women, they also place men as well, but it all started from wanting to find flexible school hour jobs for working moms. And I think Puffling is quite new and unconventional, but it's basically helping you and another person approach an employer to do a job sharing type role. And they help you package that and interview for that and figure out how you're going to communicate handoffs to each other. So Puffling is kind of a cool new thing that I've come across. And then LinkedIn also, how it can help you is to organize your network so you can get in touch with people you worked 10 years ago. And by the way, you're frozen in time in the way that they remember you. So don't be shy about reaching out. You can link in with people that you went to school with, old friends. It's a really great way to network and just send, private message. You can keep it short and sweet. If you do send an invite, I always recommend sending like a personalized message so they know that there's positive intent behind the request. You can improve your business intelligence, find job opportunities. You can become more visible by liking stuff. Now you're showing in someone else's feed that's connected to you. So it also has lots of job tips. I'm always watching the LinkedIn tutorial and articles about job seeker tips and making sure that I'm staying current with the recommendations. So it does give you a lot of good information. And then TED Talks. So if you have been out of work for a long time, it's great to watch this one by Carol Fishman, Sheryl Sandberg on why we have too few women leaders, Brene, The Power of Vulnerability. I recognize anyone who is struggling with their confidence to watch that video. It's about 20 minutes and it shows you everything in life. To succeed, you have to be vulnerable. And then the last one is what I mentioned, the star pose to help build your confidence. That's the psychologist Amy Cuddy. And we are about done. So let me open it up to questions that can come through. If you want to post any questions to the live chat on YouTube, feel free and I will answer those now. So, first question is, will companies find me annoying if I ring them up a week after an interview? Actually, no. So, I would not call earlier than 1 week from the day of your interview if you haven't heard anything. And it's okay to say, have they made a decision or are they still in the shortlisting stage? You can ask, will there be a second round of interviews? So just ask very polite questions about where they're at. Don't just say, did I get the job? Ask, polite questions about where they're at in the process. Because it has happened that people have said, oh my God, I'm so glad you called. I forgot to get back to you. We had a delay in our department with the purchase order or the requisition getting approved, or our boss went out on leave unexpectedly and we've had to put it on hold. Or you can get a more truthful answer on what's happening, like, well, we had to put the job on hold because of COVID and our company's announced a freeze. Any of those reasons. And you just typically, I would say 80% of the time, you don't hear back from employers. So the polite persistence is never a bad thing. And then if they still don't know, when you call, ask them if it's all right to call them again in another week, and ask them, are they the right person to speak to? Okay, next question. Will they tell me if I don't get the job, yeah, not most of the time. So if you get told, it's in an email, thank you for applying, sorry that you weren't successful, they generally won't respond to your application letters unless they call you for an interview. And then during the interviews, they generally will get back to you, but I still hear of occurrences where you never hear back at all after the interview. So again, don't be afraid to call them and be polite and ask for feedback if you get the chance with the person that interviewed you, because that's going to be helpful on your next interview process. What other questions do you guys have? Let's see. What do I get asked about? Some people say, should I send a thank you? Always, if you have the details, and ask them for, go and find them on LinkedIn if you now have met them at the interview. They won't be upset. And don't fail to send them a LinkedIn invite if the people that you interviewed, they may not accept it, especially if they're in HR. They generally don't accept LinkedIn requests, but it still gets your name visible and they might think of you for a future opportunity. And that happens occasionally as well. One thing that I did forget to mention today is that your resume work history and your LinkedIn work history have to match identically. If they don't, they will throw out your resume because they think either the person doesn't have attention to detail or they're hiding or lying about something. So if there's a mismatch, you're out the door. So you have to make sure that your work history is identical to what's on LinkedIn to your resume or your CV. Okay, thank you, Chris, for these questions. So do employees look at Facebook or only LinkedIn? Employers, sorry. So if they're a recruitment type company, they pay like a large, $10,000 to $20,000 premium membership. And what that does is that gives them secret visibility to all the profiles on LinkedIn. So they can go behind the scenes and look up people that meet certain criteria. So yes, they do. Most recruiters, I would say at least 90% of them have some form of membership on LinkedIn that they can surf and look at those profiles. Facebook, I guess it depends on the individual if they have an account. And then it also depends because a lot of people are getting smart and making their privacy settings closed on Facebook. So you may not get a lot of information, and also that depends on the age group, but I think they do look for it if it's available, but it's not 100% with all companies. And if it's a company that's only recruiting, for roles every 3 to 6 months, it's not a frequent occurrence, then maybe Facebook isn't as much in the equation for them. Good questions. Let's see, what else have I had a couple of ladies who are up for a promotion, and both of them are applying for a role. So they've had 10 years of great credibility at their employers, and now they're looking at becoming a leader, a people leader, and they are putting together their resume, they're refreshing their resume, but the one thing that I saw missing in both of them is that they didn't have examples of leading or influencing people, even though they didn't technically have more than one or many direct reports. So be sure that you put skill sets that are attractive to the role that you're applying for, and put examples. It doesn't mean that the person had to report directly to you, that you had to do a performance review, but if you were, if you managed a contractor, or if you were able to have some sort of performance discussion with a junior employee and you were able to train them on certain things, or provide feedback to other staff members, those are all skill sets that we are looking for in people leaders. So make sure you still showcase those, even though you technically didn't have people leadership a lot of experience. So always think about what the employer wants and try to frame it as truthfully as you can, but try to think of those stories that you can list on your resume. All right, any more questions before we close this out? I thank you, everyone, for your time today, for joining us. And I hope this helps you find your dream job. Definitely, if you can find the job that you can utilize your strengths and then use them every day at work, you will be 6 times happier at work. So important to pay attention to those. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.